Do you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can perfectly hear you.
Fantastic. You look good. You sound good, by the way.
Thank you. You look good. I love the hat.
I got to represent for my NYC at some point, right?
Work, you got to represent.
Well, so good to see you. So good to have you on. Give me just a second. I've been playing around with the settings because I want to make sure that we are live and viewable on Facebook, but at the same time, I don't want to press any buttons and cut us off. But if we get disconnected, we'll start all over again. But I think we will be good. I'm still, as tech savvy as I like to think that I am, this live stream business is sometimes.
Well, you better than me, because it takes me a while to figure things out than to remember what I just figured out.
So I'm just trying to see if I'm live on Facebook. Give me one more quick second here.
Okay.
I can see that we are live. Okay, so yeah, I can see that we're live here in StreamYard, and StreamYard bounces it over to Facebook. But let me see, view on Facebook. Don't go away.
Okay.
Can you still hear me? Yes. Okay, good. All right. So now, let me just do one more thing here, my friend, and then we will rock and roll. Make sure that my settings
all righty.
are public. Okay. Okay. Wait. Testing. Okay. All right. Wait. Can you hear me now, Berto?
I can totally hear you better. Yeah.
Okay, so we're back now. All right. So let's just get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cards on the Table with Coach Tyson. I'm Tyson Davidson, also known as Divine Chaos NYC. And tonight I have the pleasure, and this is a moment that I have been looking forward to for quite some time. And, as we get into our discussion, Berto, I'll tell you how much of an inspiration and how you are partly responsible for us having this moment in this setting. But I want to welcome you, Alberto John Kennedy, also known as the Baroness, but more importantly, one of my oldest, dearest, and closest best friends in all of creation. And, we met in Santa Barbara almost, 15 years ago? And we've had
15.
15, it's been 15 years, 2010.
It's been 15. I think it's been a bit longer, hasn't it?
Well, I moved to Santa Barbara in 2009. And then I think I met you guys, maybe I met you and Marcus at Wildcat, maybe a few months. I moved in June. Matter of fact, June 29th June 29th was the day that I moved to Santa Barbara, June 29th, 2009. And then I think I met you and Marcus maybe in October, but definitely, if not the latter part of 2009, the earlier part of 2010.
Yes.
But
yes.
It's history, and now we're creating a new moment.
Right?
So, let me just do a quick biography. But, again, tonight is not going to really be a show. It's going to be more so like, old friends catching up. But at the same time, whenever the two of us are in proximity of each other, things just happen,
They just do.
For the magic, but at the same time, we are going to have a good time, and I'm hoping that you will find this a comfortable space for you, and I want you to feel free to be you in all of your glory. Don't worry about, and I know you don't, but don't worry about anything. You're here because I want you to be here with me.
Thank you. Yes.
Again, I need to, spread a little of that Alberto energy here in New York City, and Brooklyn especially.
That's awesome.
I'm going to read the biography that you gave me, but at the same time, I will leave more than enough room for you to come and present yourself in your own way and in your own story. But, just for the sake of the audience and just for the sake of formalities, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, please welcome my special guest, Mr. Alberto John Kennedy. And, a little bit about Alberto. Alberto John Kennedy is a non-binary Mexican, African-American, effeminate, and gay psychic medium and witch or brujo with over 35 years of experience in occult, paranormal, psychic mediumship, psychic ability development, spiritual cleansing, and spiritual advising. Now, Berto, before I turn this over to you, let me just say, because, I know that I do have some, Christian people, I have some Buddhist people, I have some Islamic people. So my platform, as everyone should know by now, is universal. My audience is universal. My audience encompasses people from all walks of life, people from all, levels of wherever they are in their life, levels of spirituality, levels of economics, whatever. So this is a no judgment zone. And if you think that, tonight might be a little uncomfortable for you, you're more than welcome to exit stage left or right, whichever way, the button to go out. But at the same time, I am so open and so grateful to have you, Berto, because as part of my own spiritual journey, you have been more than instrumental. You have been more than influential. You have been more than inspirational on my own spiritual journey. And you know me, when we first met, I'm like, well, I was in church and I came from this and I came from that. But at the same time, I said, but Berto, I don't care about any of that. You are a person that I respect. You are a person who has helped me through some of the darkest moments in my life. And because I have seen what you do, I have seen how you do it. I have seen the people that you have helped. I have seen the people who have come to you broken, and you have put them on a path in ways that other things, and even if it was therapy, if it was family, if it was their religious background, whatever, you have come through for those people and pulled them through when those other things did not work, or maybe just weren't necessary for where they were in that part of their journey. So at this point, I'm giving you your flowers, more to come. But at the same time, I read your biography, but I want you to tell your story. So how would you like to introduce yourself? And please feel free to do it however and as grand as you want to.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Ty, for doing this, for inviting me on Cards on the Table, and to just basically talk, and connect, and so everybody can see, because let me just start off before I go into my brief little bio. Whenever you hear the word brujo or witch or whatever, you think, oh my God, it's scary movie status, right? It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? When it really, it's a word that really has taken on a life of its own, because in real deal Holyfield terms, a witch is just somebody that's wise in the ways of old healings, old knowledge, helping people be their better selves, inspiring people to be their better selves. You're not telling them what to be. You're not trying to save them. No. You're inspiring them to be their better selves. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, that's what witches do. That's what healers do, shamans do. That's what we were doing before the advent of organized religion, Orthodox religion. We already had a personal relationship with God.
Right. And
so that's, in essence, what I do. I inspire people. I use my abilities as a witch. I'm a third generation. My grandmother was, my mom is, and I am. So I read, I tarot or a person's energy. I am a psychic medium. What I do for the living, I also do for the dead. I can feel the dead. I can't see the dead, but I can feel the dead. I know what they're feeling, what they're going through. I feel their presence. And what makes me different than other psychic mediums is that I'm not going to call the dead, bug the hell out of them. Hey, come here. I want to talk to you. No, you don't do that. They already graduated life. If they want to talk, they will come to me. If they do not want to talk, well, then people silent in the room. They're not going to talk, and I'm not going to force the issue. That's disrespectful. When they do talk, they usually have a lot to say. And so that's what I do. I do spiritual cleansings. I do basic stuff that a witch does. I heal, spiritual healing. I get you on the right track. I listen to you, and when you have so much on your heart, mind, spirit, or soul, sometimes all you need is somebody there to listen and to bring a little light to you so you can find your way. And I'm just blessed that I'm able to do that in my way. Sure. I respect all religions, every religion. I'm an omniist. I respect all religions. This just so happens to be my path, and it's the path that I choose to express my my personal relationship with God or a higher power.
Mhm. Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Listen, trust me, you answered my question. And so, again, even myself, like I said before, like I've always said to you, again, I didn't grow up in the church per se, but I do come from a very strong, religious foundation. And, with that being said, two of my great grandfathers on both sides were preachers. My great mother on my dad's side, my great grandmother, my dad told us the stories. When he was growing up, people would come to the house. My great grandmother lived with them, and people would come to the house to her, for healing, root work. I'm from down, and so down
root
south,
work.
Hoodoo and root work, and one thing that the church does not like to admit to is that sometimes, especially if you talk about Old South and people who came from those little small towns, and we're talking about from slavery through emancipation, through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, when Black people, especially slaves, formerly enslaved or enslaved or released at that time, when they had no access to medical care, because more or less people were treated like property, like cattle, and those old ancestors had to find ways to heal themselves. They had to find ways to heal others, and then and more so, like, to add insult to the injury, sometimes they had to heal the slave owners. They had to be midwives. They had to be like, depending on where you were, if you had no access or no immediate access to medical help. And again, people had to just use what they had. So, and again, being, most of us, a lot of us, I should say, and you especially will relate to this, we do have indigenous ancestry as well. My family, especially,
exactly.
We are Choctaw Indian on my dad's side. Now I have some cousins on here who might think, I ain't never heard that. Well, you don't know all of my cousins, right? We all have multiple sides of our families, right? And so I know the history of my dad's side of the family, but I also know that people had to rely on those home remedies. And so when we talk about there are people who would leave church and tiptoe over to go see the root lady, because the church was going to tell, well, honey, I'm praying for you. The root woman was like, here, take this, where, this will help get that out of you. This will help all those things. And so I'm saying all of that to say, we get hung up on words, but at the same time, the methods and the spiritual practices and just the things that we can call upon were the things that have been in our ancestors, that were in our ancestors before they left the continent. Africa, all of life began in Africa, but that African spirituality was there before everything else. Everything else is just an offshoot of that was already there. So people were practicing,
I agree,
thousands of years before. And so I wanted to just add that because, again, I know people get hung up on words, and then, most people can only give you the textbook definition or the textbook understanding of their relationship with God, but not understanding that God is everything, everywhere, and in everyone, including us. And we can all have a relationship. I can bypass the prophet. I can bypass the psychic. I can bypass the medium because I have that divine connection. But if along the way I need help, and guess what? We've been taught that those things are demonic, but I haven't met a demon yet. I've met some people who I thought were demons because they were just as evil and mean and nasty, you know what I'm saying? While they were praying for me. But at the same time, I just know that, my family, your family, and those that we can see and haven't seen have been an inspiration and a help to me and a help to other people. So again, I appreciate your gift. I appreciate the knowledge that you're going to share here. And for the people who already know you tuning in, I'm pretty sure those people are high-fiving each other in the background because we know what you do. We know how you feel, and we know how you heal. So with that being said, I'm just gonna jump right into it. We'll just let the cards fall and let the chips fall, and we'll just go. We're gonna have a good time. How about that?
Yes,
so the first question that I would like to ask, and you've already said this, but I'm going to ask you again: who is Alberto John Kennedy?
I'm thinking about that question, I'm going like, who is Alberto Kennedy? I'm going like, damn, who is you? Well, I'm going like, well, what I'm saying is that for me, I don't know. It's like my first response that instinctually is I'm me. I'm self-aware. I'm a self-aware psychic medium brujo. And I navigate in the world like that, you know? I it's important to me to inspire people, to help people, because let me put it this way. When I was in kindergarten, I kept by myself. I made my own fun. And I wasn't sad. I was happy. I knew how to have fun with myself. Go here, go there, kind of, free spirited. I saw this one kid crying in the sandbox. And he was an African American kid. Nobody wanted to play with him. Now, at this time in the 70s, mid to late 70s. I was in 72, so like in 78, 79, or maybe 80. I don't know when, the time frames are bad, but I saw this kid, he was crying because nobody wanted to play with him. And what I was going to bring up is Santa Barbara at that time, it wasn't really cool with Black people.
Sure.
In Santa Barbara.
Sure.
And so Black kids, all these other kids, which was because Santa Barbara was predominantly white. So at that time, predominantly white. And so this Black kid was there and he was crying because nobody wanted to play with them. And me, I didn't care about other people playing with me. I was playing with myself. But I saw him and that just broke my heart as a little kid. I'm going like, why is he crying? And and then the teacher's like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? He goes, nobody wants to play with me. This always happens. And he was he had it, this kid. And I walked up to him and I'm going like, I'll play with you. Don't cry. I'll play with you. That's my nature.
Sure.
I can't sit idly by if somebody is in distress or in a crisis. And if they're asking for help, I have to do something. That's just my nature.
Sure.
And that's who I am. I want to make a difference.
Okay.
And I want to inspire other people to make a difference. That's what I am. That's what I'm about. I just see nowadays people are not. There's a resounding lack of empathy, and that's scary to me because I'm going like, if you cannot empathize with people, places, and things, past, present, then something wrong with you. You're a part of this world. You're not a part of this world to see what you can get out of it. That's survival. You're also part of this world to make a difference.
Right.
We are all in this mud ball of a planet together. And people tend to forget that. They're going like, oh no, I have to worry about me. I have to worry about me. You lose the game that way. You have to, you're a part of a bigger family spiritually, What's the point of living your entire existence playing that game, the one with the most toys wins? How is that helping you spiritually or the world around you? I have to make a difference because very few people are.
Sure. Well, let me
back up. That's me. It's Alberto.
Fantastic. And you're excellent, by the way. But let me just back up to cover a couple of things. So now I know you. Now, when you say Brujo, can you explain to those of us who don't know you and who aren't familiar with the term, what that means, where it comes from?
A brujo is basically like a witch doctor or a witch. My mom, she used to heal in Mexico City. Right. Heal with her hands, herbs and hands and whatnot, and she could take pain away. She used to heal this one client who had cancer at the time, and she couldn't take away the cancer, but she could slow it down, and she could take away the pain that it was causing the guy. My mom used to do that with her hands. She used to also cleanse locations from spiritual activity, paranormal activity, excuse me. She used to perform when she used to take a spirit off, or remove attachments from people. Spiritual cleansings. that's what I do. I got all that from her.
Gotcha.
With the little bonus is that I can see emotions. I can see and feel what other people are thinking and feeling. I can see the spiritual attachments around people. What are they carrying with them? And I can remove dark things, dark energies.
Gotcha.
I was gifted with that.
I love your mom, by the way. Your mom is like a second mom to me. But
she says hi, by the way.
Hi, mommies. You know, I was hoping she might pop in and wave at us. But Berto, you know, tell us a little bit about mommies. You know, again, I know mommies, but tell us, you know, how did your mom get her knowledge, and like tell us about your mom's background and where your gifts come from.
Yeah, my mom is a Creole, which is a Mexican Indian and Spanish.
Yes.
And she grew up, her mother tried to keep the spiritual life away from my mom, you know, not to influence her. And also everything, she's from the old school, where you hid your abilities for fear of persecution. Yeah. And so everything was always under the table, you know, okay, you know, we don't talk about that, you know, we keep it to ourselves. And she grew up like that, but she taught me everything that she knew, as much as she knew. And luckily I had a mom like her, you know, because one thing I was gonna save this for one of the questions, but this, you asked about my mom. I wanted to share this with you. My mom is the type of woman, lady, queen, that when I came to her and I was crying, and she goes, "What? ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Qué te pasa?" She goes, "What's going on? What's happening?" I'm going like, "These people said that I'm not black enough and I'm not Mexican enough, so I'm nothing." And I'm like this, okay, you know what? Que se chingan a su puta madres. And she basically said, I won't say it in English, but you know, but she cussed them out. And she basically said, she goes, "You listen to me, because I'm only going to have this conversation with you once." I'm like, oh my God, okay, did I do something wrong? But then she basically said, she goes, "You are not half and half. Half and half is what people put in their coffee. Right. You 2 and 1. Right. And when that happened, I'm going like, oh, okay. And then she goes, "And you, as you grow up, you'll know what that means. But don't let nobody tell you who you are. Right. This is who you are. You are 2 and 1, not half and half. You're not a glass of coffee. You're not a cup of coffee." Right. And I'm going like, okay. You know, and it was like that boom, that power. And I'm going like, she goes, "You be proud of both, because you are both." I'm like, okay. And it's like she was telling them through me. I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, it's looking a little bit of a delay. I don't want to talk over you. But okay. No, I was going to, because I know your mom. And so again, just for the sake of clarity, because your mom grew up in Mexico City, Mexico. Am I mistaken about that? Your mom is the Mexican side of you, not the half, the Mexican side of you. And your father is the foundational Black American from Louisiana?
Yes. Okay. Yes. He's from, he's from Maryland.
Oh, from Maryland. Okay. Okay.
Maryland.
Still that southern.
And so, yeah, I got that, you know, I got both of them from, and I have a feeling that I've always been drawn to African spiritualism, like Santeria, because Santeria is Lukimi from the Yoruba tribe in West Nigeria. You know, a lot of people forget, they think it's an Afro-Latino, it's African originally.
Right.
Yeah. And the voodoo from also from West Nigeria, the Kingdom of Benin. Now it's they changed, you know, the government system, but that's where it all comes from. And so I know I just have this affinity, just as if I work Aztec brujeria or Mexican Indian brujeria or witchcraft, which is working with the old entities of the indigenous people. Sure. I have an affinity for indigenous spirituality because it speaks to me, the African and the Mesoamerican.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, there are people who still practice that, and the colonization of Africa. And again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing religion. I'm not, because again, most of who I am is because of the religion, and there are things that I embrace that I just will never depart from ever. I come from a prophetic church. I come from a deliverance ministry where we cast out demons, we spoke in tongues, we do all those things, and even those origins in West Africa, we know that. But my point being, like, I want people to understand what you mean and where you're coming from when you say Brujo, because that's the indigenous or the Mesoamerican part of you, and those things are important to the culture, because in certain parts of, I'm pretty sure, people still practice those things. Not everyone has converted or denied or moved away from, and those things are still a lifeline.
Exactly. I agree. I've always respected other religions. For me personally, and I'll say it out loud, this is probably the controversial part, the quiet part, is that I cannot be a party to or a part of a religion that seeks my destruction. Hell no. No. And so I respect it if it brings light to other people. There go, you do you. But I'm gonna stay right the fuck here.
Right. and you know what? I wouldn't have you any other way. It's funny you would say that, because even on Tuesday I had gone out, for it should have been happy hour. I got there a little bit late, and I love my dirty martinis. But at the same time, I'm minding my business, and you again, me. I'm not the most social person, and I don't want to be bothered with everybody. So I'm sitting there with my on. A guy comes in and he's talking to the bartender. They're friends. They know each other. And so, again, I'm polite because the bartender was like, hey, do you guys know each other? At this point, it's just the two of us sitting at the bar. So it did seem kind of odd to be sitting there and just like not talking. But, again, I don't want to talk to everybody. I don't want to be friends with everybody.
You've always been that way. You've always, that even when I first met you, you always liked your space. You've always said hi to people and whatnot. Now you went to the bar, sat where you can see the lay of the land, but you usually like to be left the hell alone, and which is understandable because you are a private person in private life.
Exactly. But just to get through this really quickly, the story. So again, he's there. The bartender's, trying to, because like the place is empty. It's already like 10:30 at this point, right? And so of course, we eventually make small talk. Now, just from what because I was listening to parts of their conversation. They were having a conversation, and just some of the things that I was hearing coming from them. Two straight men, whatever. I don't care, but it just sounded like conversation. It sounded like conversation that I just would not want to be a part of, because I'm looking at two older men and they are speaking and using language and saying things that I would expect to hear from a 16-year-old boy. And I'm looking at two grandpas, and I'm like, at some point you got to let that go. And so little by little, the guy, he and I, we just start to make up small talk. And so I don't even know how the conversation started. But at one point he was asking me something, and then he was telling me something, and I think he was trying to tell me something about like a little bit of a personal thing. I gathered that he was, at least he grew up here in New York City or whatever, and he had never really lived anywhere else, or maybe he traveled, but whatever it was, don't care. But as the conversation went on, me, as I began to hear things and hear things, not what was coming out of his mouth, but in that other zone.
You were reading.
Exactly. And I try not to do it because, again, a lot of people don't know that I do that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't know that I have that ability, and that's even people who have known me my whole life. But again, like I said, people know what they know when they're around you, but not what they don't know when they're not around you. And so, I started to say certain things, and then he got quiet. And then I said a little bit more. So he was like, okay, well, yeah. He goes, like, it's interesting that you know that. It's interesting that you would call that out. Yeah, how do you know? I don't know how you know these things. This is him saying to me, I don't know where you're getting all this from. And I said, well, listen, brother, at the same time, I don't mean to speak out of turn, because he was, black guy. And I said, but, at this point, again, like, you don't have to take what I'm saying to you. But at the same time, that's just kind of what I'm getting. but feel free to, like, do whatever you will with what I've shared or not, right? And so he said, well, he goes, well, even if what you're saying, even though some of it might be true, because, he didn't want to, like, just let it go, right? But at the same time, I knew he was gearing up for an argument. And at the same time, he's going to try to assert some type of dominance in the conversation, right? And so he's like, well, even though some of what you're saying might be true, he's saying it just like that. He's like, but at the same time, he's like, I'm a Christian. I said, good for you. And so he said, oh, well, let me ask you this. Do you believe in the Bible? And I said, well, which Bible? And why would I believe in it? Because guess what? Do you know the origin of the Bible? And at the same time, I'm more than qualified to talk about any book of the Bible you want to talk to, because one, I did grow up in church, but I am still an ordained minister, and I have studied religion. So what parts of the Bible where would you like to start? And so then, of course, he's like, well, Christianity began in Ethiopia. I said, it did not begin in Ethiopia. So, but again, brother, we don't even have that conversation, because at this point, I'm not interested in finishing the conversation. Like, again, I'm going to go back to my cocktail. You go back to what you're doing. We don't even have to have the conversation. So, but he wants to keep it going, right? So now he's like, do you believe in the Holy Spirit? Do you? And I said, once again, brother, let me just tell you again, I don't care what you believe. I'm not here to convert you. We were having a conversation. Obviously, the conversation just didn't go, or it just doesn't seem like this is the appropriate moment, or it's even necessary at this point. I was sitting here minding my own business. You guys engaged me. But at the same time, I'm not here to say yes or no to whatever's going on with you. And at this point, we can just stop talking.
Bingo. That part.
Whatever you say is not going to change my mind, and whatever I say is not going to change your mind.
And how you handled it, Ty? How you handled it, Ty, was perfect. How you handled it was perfect, because you are very, very well spoken, and you are a bit of a diplomat. You can see both sides of a situation and you act accordingly. I am not that way, as you well remember. I tend to be when I'm reading somebody, like, if I usually, when I'm out and about having my dirty martinis, and I'll see something, and if I'm being told you need to talk to this person, I'm getting it from their spirits.
Right.
So then I go, like, you don't know me from Adam. I read people, and can I read you, or shall I leave you alone? That's also on the table as well. Oh, no, go ahead. I heard about you. Okay. And so I read them, and then I leave, their jaw drops, But there's some people who get angry, who get defensive, who get, well, I'm a Christian and this and this. I'm like, hey, I love that for you. Okay. I'm not trying to, my existence does not negate your higher power. Okay, because I'm gonna be who I be, and I've been on who I am, who I is. Okay, so I tell these people, I'm going, like, look, all I picked up was this, and this. Okay, there you go. And they're going, and their jaw drops again, because they're going, like, how the hell does he know this?
Right.
And I let them know, refer to rule number 1, psychic. And there's some people that the message is well received. There's some other people who get a bit aggressive. They get a bit hostile. And sometimes I'm not even talking to them. I'm talking to somebody else, and they'll just chime in. Well, you know what? This is a Christian establishment. This is not a church. Sit your ass down and get the hell out of my business. Number 1. Number 2, I wasn't even talking to you. I'm like this. You need to know where to sit down, sir. You're here. You need to be there. And so I'm like, what the hell? So what they tend to think, and this is what I used to do. I used to walk with a light foot. I mentioned this in one of my posts on my Facebook. So I've always felt like a guest in my own country, an unwanted guest. Now, how I move has changed. I love me. It took oodles amount of time to get to that level of loving myself, And if I'm healing somebody or helping somebody, that moment in time is sacred for that person. And I'm helping them, and I'm, and I see tears of joy coming down, and they go, thank you so much. Well, no problem. You have a nice evening, whatever. And it's positive. It's all positive, but they needed that. And if somebody's coming in to throw their 2 or 10 cents of shade, I'm going like, sweetie, you coming over at me like you want some beef, and I'm the type of bitch that'll feed you till you're full. I'm not the one. I'm not the one. I'm just not, sir.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have to let them know I'm going, because you see me go, you know my body of work, in the sense that I love helping people. But if I have to switch and if I have to flip a technique, si buscas, como they say in Spanish, si buscas ruido al chicharrón, canto, cabrón, canto. You know? What the hell? Yeah.
You know, flip a table, flip a person.
So but your story totally moved me.
Yeah, I've seen it. But, you know, it's funny because I was sharing the same story with a friend of mine earlier today, because I said, you know, in that same bar, in that same place, I met another young man 3 weeks ago. Same thing happened. We're having a conversation, you know, but at the same time, he was more receptive. And I'm talking about grown men full on tears. You know, I have been at work conferences. My coworkers start telling me things, and I'm sharing. Grown people full on tears because they're like, there's no way that you would have known that. And again, because, you know, going back to my religious experiences, I have seen people come into church, and we have deliverance service, and you know, you see people come to get in line to get a word from the prophet, you know. And so again, I don't try to influence what people believe or don't believe. I just say that, you know, if God, as you know him to be, if God is speaking to you, you will know what's of God and what isn't of God. That's why I leave it, you know, because again,
that part is true.
I can turn things on, I can turn things off. I don't have to receive from everybody, and I don't expect everyone to receive from me. But at the same time, if I'm able to help you, and again, I'm a life coach. At the end of the day, I'm a life coach. And so it's my job to give you, you know, and even in a spiritual sense, you know, you are a coach, a healing coach. It is our job to give people the tools. They still have to do the work themselves. Most people don't want to do the work. They want a quick fix. They want a quick answer. And even if you give it to them, they find themselves right back in the same predicaments, the same position, the same mentality, because there hasn't been a shift in the consciousness, there hasn't been a shift in the mindset, and there hasn't been a shift in the physical work that is required to move on, to move forward. And I know that there are some people who are professional victims. As long as there's somebody who's willing to listen to that sad story, they're going to always keep on playing and telling that same sad story. And no matter how much you try to help them, eventually you get sucked in. And now it dampens your mood. It waters down your message. It waters down your ability, in a sense, because that's time wasted on someone who's not trying to move forward, you know.
Exactly.
So now you've lost time over here. And then what happens when they don't get the result that they were hoping for? Now they're mad. And now, oh, well, he was fake. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, you told me a lie. Oh, I don't, you know, because now you're the villain. So whereas when they're no longer the victim, you become the villain.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And that's the truth. That's the truth. That's how some people react to the truth.
Yeah.
Because when we're reading somebody, we're telling them the truth. Mm-hmm. How I work is that there's a Aztec god. His name is Tezcatlipoca. Tezcatlipoca is the smoking mirror, or the black mirror. Mm-hmm. Now, what makes the black mirror significant? It's that when you look at yourself in a black mirror, you're going to see all the scary, but that's inside you. You know, that's inside you. My job, and what the teaching of the black mirror is, you have to know what's inside your dark, so you can appreciate your light.
Right. Yes.
You know, and so what I do is when I read somebody, for example, and remember, I work with both hands. Sometimes that means that I have to do positive stuff, yes. But if you come from me, I'm not above doing some negative shit. I'm going like, because I'm gonna protect myself and the people that I love, 100%. So what I do is, like, for example, I'm giving you this example. When I had a client, and she brought a friend. And I was helping the client, and I said, well, what we have to look at is this and this and this. She goes, well, I don't know why you're telling me that. Well, it's a pattern of behavior that you're exhibiting. You're doing this and this and this, and yet you're expecting the complete opposite from those actions. That's never going to happen, because the actions you're taking is helping you manifest the worst outcome possible for you. This is self-sabotage. And I'm trying to get you to see that because only you can change your pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
That's how I work. I go in deep and I show you what's messing you up.
Right.
So that way you can recognize it's you. Let's work on what you are inviting in your life. So that way, once you establish the appropriate boundaries psychologically, emotionally, your physical life will start clearing up.
Right.
And that's how I work. Because my thing is that the reason why we have these gifts is because we want people to be their better selves. And when I say better selves, all that basically means is I want people to be happy. I'm the type of person, there's no way you're going to win in a competition with me. Why? Because I want you to win. I'm happy with me.
Right.
I'll get to where I need to be when the higher power says I need to be there. But while I'm here, I'm gonna help you get to where you need to go.
Right.
You know, that's the whole point. That's what all of us are here for. To help one another. Not judge one another, help one another.
And again, and because I always have to give the good. If I give the bad of something, I have to give the good of it too. And so again, if it were not for my spiritual foundation, because when I was in church, I loved being in church. I love my church members. I love my spiritual parents. They taught me so much. And even now, when I go through challenges, it's those old memories that help me get through. And I have seen how people, even, people who are still in that church system, people will turn against the same pastors who are trying to help them, and again, it's because when people have it in them to just be mean and to be nasty, anybody who's trying to help them, anything that's opposite or contrary to what they've accepted in their mind is going to be poison to them, and they're going to have a negative response or negative reaction. And I have seen good people, be ripped apart because somebody couldn't get it together on their own or didn't even try to get it together on their own. And so, there's always going to be something bashing. There's always going to be that one person. My dad used to always say, if I gave out $100 until the money ran out, the person who showed up after the money ran out and didn't get it will be the very person will be the first person to go out and try to tear me apart and say I was lying. I never had the money anyway. See what I said? They showed up too late. You got here too late, whatever. But again, I just wanted to point that out with you because I have seen, again, the results, the reaction, the response, and I have seen the genuine care that you show towards people. And again, when people hear certain words and then, in their mind, they make it a dark thing. And I'm like, well, no, everything isn't a dark thing. And again, I'm looking at the results.
Yes, and it's how you go about it. What makes grace, or what makes abilities, or grace or ability. Sometimes they're one and the same. What makes it is your intent. It's your intention. If your intention is pure, oh my God, that's just awesome, right? But there's some people out there who their intention is not pure. And they just want to harm and hurt because they've been harmed and they've been hurt in the past.
Right.
How people respond to that is different. How I respond is I look at them and I go like, look, I'm not going to be mad at you at first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the truth. The reason why you're so busy trying to hurt this person, hurt that person, and do this and that and live kind of foul like you're living is because you were hurt and you have never healed. So therefore you are upset and even jealous that other people who have found the light are happy in their lives, whatever the hell they're doing. They're minding their own business and you trying to mess with them because you were messed with. You are not healed. That's why you want to wound everybody else. You might want to go around the corner and mess with that person and leave this bitch alone because I will not be the one.
Right.
I won't. If you want help, I'll try to. If you're disrespectful, I got an app for that. I'm like, I don't play that. Especially
and sometimes, you got to pull it out on them, and again, and you said all these wonderful things about me, that I'm diplomatic and, I'm polite and others, but, you see me putting in some work too.
Oh, now, yeah. But see, you always lead with diplomacy. I've seen you. But when you have to pull that cray card, you cray, and you have to do it. Yes, I've seen you. I've been there, boo. I was the one that go like this. Get them, Ty. Get them. Yeah, you tag me in if you need it.
Thankfully, I haven't had very many situations where I've had to be that other side. But I always say to people, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. And I try to give people enough, latitude and you just said grace and understanding. I'm patient until I'm not, and I don't have time for stupid, I don't like stupid conversations. I don't like small chatter about dumb things. It's like, okay, is there a point to this? And if we can get to that point, let's get there quickly. But if we can, you can go with it. I'm sorry,
especially when they're new. They're I hate the word stranger because it's stranger danger. No, but it's so people that are new, and when they approach you, and this is where I show my age, because I'm going like, I'm used to manners. I'm used to being polite. Exactly. I'm used to social graces. I'm going like, now people coming up raised from a barn or something, they just go like, hey, let's not about this. Wait a minute. Do I fucking know you?
Right.
I'm going like, wait a minute. Know who you talking to. You introduce yourself. Yeah. Manners, right. And I conduct myself that way. Even when I order a drink, I'm like this. May I have a dirty martini, please? Vodka. Or I would love a Bacardi and Coke. Thank you so much. And manners go a long way. Now, if you see somebody showing manners and whatnot, they seem like they're from a different world. They're going like, oh, wait a minute, he old school. He's all saying yes, please, no, thank you, and everything. What's going on? And well, that's because I was raised correctly.
Yeah, and even that's the thing because, and even I get from the South, and people from the South, and I'm like, well, listen, where I'm from is not your business, and where I'm from doesn't define who I am, and so. Even with that being said, I grew up a certain way, and part of that was having manners, showing respect, and I had to check somebody here one time because they said, oh, you say please and thank you. That's slave shit from down south. That's people who were raised properly from good families and people who had how and what they present.
Now it's an exotic quality.
Yeah, but you already answered these two questions, but I'll just ask them anyway. But again, I kind of like this freestyle. I had the questions prepared, but I knew it would go this way. I like how we can freestyle because, like I said, we're teaching, we're catching up, but at the same time, we're living and we're imparting knowledge. And again,
yes,
people who can take away from this, God bless you all. I promise you, if whatever it is that you are looking for, and I'm talking to the audience, if it isn't clicking for you now, I promise you it'll click for you later, and if it didn't click for you, well, you know what? This wasn't your time tonight. We will come back for the next episode.
Yeah, it happens. Well, it's the truth. It's like, it's hard to quantify someone or something, like a person, place, or thing that is an acquired taste. It's not going to be for everybody, Hunty. It's not, Right. Some people will love me. Some people will like me. Some people will dislike me. And some people will out and out hate me. But I'll have no person in between. Right. Be committed. Right. And because be committed. If you don't like me, that's fine. I won't lose any sleep, boo-boo. Sometimes I have a hard time liking myself, but I'm here. Right. So it's like, I get it. Sometimes I'm a bit much. I'm a bit extra. That's just who I am. That's not going to change. So if it's too much for you, if I'm too much for you, go find less.
Right. Well, too much. Because again, and so, the second question was how and when did you realize that you were different from other people, including family and friends? And you told us about the little, on the playground. And then, of course, I said, being a mixed racial, ethnic, cultural heritage, how did you find your center as a gifted individual? That I would like for you to kind of give us a little bit more layers.
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So, Alberto, being of mixed racial, ethnic, and cultural heritage, how did you find your center as a gifted individual? Because you've got it coming in from all directions and from all angles. Like, how did you set it?
My mom, like with you're not half and half. Half and half is what people put in their coffee. That really helped me understand that both my heritages are beautiful. They're special. They're magical, they're awesome. And we're survivors. We're survivors, That really put in my head that I have to be the best representation for both my people. I have to be the best me I can be, not just for myself and for the people that I interact with, but for my ancestors. That matters to me, Right. That was my compass. That helped me be me. Because let's face facts, without our ancestors, we wouldn't be here.
Right. True.
So I love my ancestors because they went through hell for us to be here at this moment in time. They merit our respect, our reverence, our to be remembered. And that's what I try to do. I want to be the best person possible in my life, best me possible for them. That's my compass, and that's what helps me. And it was a trip because I think you knew me around the time where I was barely getting myself together emotionally because I was really angry.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Lompoc, I didn't go out for a while because I had to process that anger.
Right.
And my spirits help a lot, the spirits that I work with. They basically had a sit down with me, and they basically said, okay, you're approaching a fork in the road in your life where how long you gonna be this angry? How long you gonna be upset with the world? That's coloring your view of the world. That's affecting you. Anger is toxic, and the levels of anger that you have is a problem, boo. So is that what you really want to do? We're not going to tell you yes or no. That's how you feel, and that's how you feel, and if that's how you want to roll, that's how you're going to roll. But you're going to hurt yourself, and we have to let you know. So I had to let go a lot of anger. Can I go from 180 from 0 to 180 in a hot minute? Hell yes. But I'm not as angry as I used to be, and that's due to my ancestors. That's due to the spirits I work with. That's due to my African American ancestors and my Mexican Indian ancestors.
Right.
Did I answer your question? I hope I answered your question correctly.
My question, because now this is where we kind of like turn the corner just a little bit, but still in that same zone. So because the next question is, when did you come out as LGBTQIA? But before I let you,
you got questions, boo. You got questions.
Right? Because you know how I was when we first met. You know how I was just, everybody thought that I was Malcolm X Jr. And that I'm very, when you say ancestors, I'm very firm about my lineage, and I tell people I don't care about anything in this world other than me being a Black man. Now, whatever comes after that, that's all nice and good, but I care about my foundation as a Black man, as a Black American man, and as a man who has, had the experiences, and negative, good, most rooms and spaces that I enter professionally, I'm usually the only Black man in the room, and I'm certainly the only Black man that, can have an intelligent and full-on discourse in those spaces. And when people approach me, they try to come at me on some what up homie kind of shit, right? And I'm like, bro, I'm not your homie. My name is Ty Davidson, and if you can't say that, Mr. Davidson, is just fine. And if you can't say that, then just don't even talk to me at all. And I will say
Well,
that the
yeah.
CEO, I have said that, I'm not joking. The one dude one time, he said, "Oh, yo." I said, "Yo is a toy." You know, and he just kind of looked at me, you know. And
It's the truth.
and the reason why I'm bringing that up in this conversation, because, you know, again, even in LGBT spaces, you know that there are still places in those spaces where your African American and even in your Mexican side, it's not always welcome. It's not always palatable in those spaces, in those circles, right? And so you're still kind of like, you know, trying to get a seat at the table, and they're shutting the door in your face, you know. And so I wanted to frame that, because when you said you moved to Lompoc, and again, because I know you, I know some of the challenges that you had in Santa Barbara around all of that, being gay, being Black, being effeminate, being, you know, Mexican, all those things that kind of like, you know, put you in an outsider status. And then when you moved to Lompoc, it was hard in your face even more so. But I wanted you to kind of cover all of that, because, you know, the topic for our show, by the way, was in living color. And so
I like it.
You know,
let me bring some color up in her. Okay, so what happens is this. What happened? To answer two questions, as you said, thank you for saying it. That I am Mexican, African American, and I'm effeminate and gay, non-binary. Okay. Now, just with all that, you know, I was, you know, born fighting.
Right.
And so, literally, I was born fighting, because I was born with pneumonia. And so I was fighting then. So it's just fight, exist, survival. I had a great teacher, my mom. She fought hard. She had to learn the language, get the jobs, pay the rent, pay the bills, get us to school. She did all that on her own. And I was seeing everything. What I learned how to navigate my ethnicity, my culture, my dual heritage, my sexuality, and everything like that, I learned that it's good to be a fighter, but you also have to be a strategist. You need strategy. Fighting is stupid if you don't have strategy. You need a game plan. And so I've always, for example, when I always knew I was gay. I always knew, even in kindergarten.
Okay.
But I didn't know the name for it. I just knew that I liked my sex. Yeah, and so, but I didn't know what that meant, really, because I was a kid, you know. But I always knew. And so as I got older, and when I started understanding a little bit more before puberty, I made a vow to myself. And I made a vow to, at that time, God, because I didn't know about the full extent of my ability. So I was praying to God, and I basically told God, "Look, God, you know, like that Judy Blume book. You know, he goes, 'Hello, God, it's me, Margaret.' That's how I felt, you know, because I was talking to God, and I'm going like, 'Look, God, I don't know if I am or if I'm not.' I couldn't even say gay, you know. I was too afraid to admit it. But I knew, so I told God, God, if I don't know, I'm not going to be with either. I'm not going to be with a man. I'm not going to be with a woman until I know who and what I am. That way I don't hurt anybody and I don't hurt myself." And this was, I was prepubescent. I was, you know, before puberty. But as luck would have it, I came out when I was 23 years old, around the same time I lost my virginity.
Gotcha.
Okay. And, you know, and so, but I waited, and so I'm that type of person. I measured twice and cut once. Now, you know, because when I was younger, I was always trying to prove that I was just as valid as everybody else. I'm just as strong as the straights. I'm like this. Who are you trying to prove this to? Who are you trying to prove this to? You know, accept yourself. Don't look for acceptance outside of you. You have to accept you. If people are going to hate you, that's just how it is in this world. Nothing's easy. Nothing easy in my world. But you're going to have to love yourself sooner or later, because if not, this world is going to fucking suck.
Right.
And that's why I'm going like, you know what? I love me. I faked it till I could make it, and now I feel it in my heart. I'm going like, you know what? Even if this entire world did not like me or hated me, it would be uncomfortable, to be sure, but I'd be all right.
Right.
Because I can sleep at night. I haven't allowed the darkness of this world to destroy my inner child.
Right.
To destroy the woman inside me and the man that I am.
Right.
That's non-binary.
Right. Well, you know,
and I won't allow it to.
Fantastic. I wanted to say, because, you know, even in this current climate, you know, with the political situation being what it is, you know, we've got all these things going on, you know, how does that like affect you? Because, you know, you're being pulled, you know, do I support this? Do I speak up on that? Do I remain quiet about this? Because everyone's trying to challenge or question your allegiance or demand your allegiance. You know, how do you navigate this current political climate? Because all of these things that we've talked about tonight are all impacted or on the table or, you know, part of all of the chaos that we're seeing in the world right now. What's your response to that?
What's happening in the climate right now, I call it the socio-political climate. Because ethnicity has a lot to do with what's going on right now. It's highly racial issues are highly polarized right now, from my experience, from what I'm seeing. Here in Lompoc, I have to admit that Lompoc is very conservative. There's a lot of Trump supporters in Lompoc. I have friends that are very conservative. They know I'm liberal.
Right.
I make no bones about that. I'm very vocal. I respect their political perspectives, how they see things. That's their choice. I can't make somebody think, believe, see, feel what I do. I'm me, they're them. But when there's something that they say around the race situation, bet your bottom dollar I chime in.
Right.
So I think that with respect, I have been navigating this climate, being vocal and respecting my authentic truth, and really struggling to respect the authentic truth of others. I struggle, but I do it because that's a courtesy I would expect them to afford me. And I'm learning as I go, I guess, you know. I'm not a master at it. But I endeavor to try.
That's more than most
Did you
people
get that?
are willing to. I got that. Can you hear? Are you still hearing me? Okay.
Yeah, it goes in and out.
Same here. You kind of going in and out. I don't know if it's my internet connection. It looks like a signal, but at the same time, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, we're still linked. I can still see you. I can see your head moving. So we're almost out of time, but, you know, again, like I said, I knew that when we get together, you know, it's always just, you know, a good time.
It does.
I gave you an opportunity to, you know, just share your story. So really quickly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. 2 more quick questions for you. And again, in all that you just said, us just now, and because I've seen people, say, oh, well, if you support this, if you don't support that, I'm not speaking to you anymore. We're not friends. You're dead to me. And to me, it's never going to be that serious, because see, if I say that to you, that's me trying to take control over you. I'm not giving you the space to be you. We can disagree. We don't have to agree with everything.
No, I agree with you. Yeah.
But with that being said, what is it that helps find that balance? Because again, even though it might seem like, a difference of opinion, and true, yeah, a difference of opinion can have effects, negative effects. But at the same time, when do you decide if it's worth cutting that person off, or is it just you saying, okay, that's their perspective, it's not mine, and as long as we don't talk about that, we're good. But at the same time, I just know that that's not going to have us in a good space. So how do you find the balance in
that? Boundaries in the sense that a lot of people tend to believe this political climate, it's just pure politics. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's racial nuances to these politics right now. There is racism in these politics right now, these policies that are being passed. So I gauge it like this, and it just works for me for right now. And this is subject to amendment in the future, should it need be. Whenever I'm talking with people and whatnot, and I understand that their views on politics is a bit more conservative than mine, that's not a reason for me to stop talking to them. No. But if I see their pattern of behavior that's racist, that makes me uncomfortable, mind you, remember, I'm gay, Black, and Mexican. So I'm going like, if any part of my existence feels endangered, I'm a responding kind.
Right.
And I'm going to let everybody know that. Respect me to be respected.
Right.
And I think that's fair. And for the most part in Lompoc, they have been that way. The people that I've connected with and whatnot, they're awesome. I love them because, to be fair, and this, I'm gonna probably piss some of my Santa Barbara people off, but I haven't experienced, in the 10 years that I've been here in Lompoc, I haven't experienced that type of racism that I grew up with in Santa Barbara.
Right.
That's for damn sure.
Right.
And the people who have been the most kindest to me here in Lompoc are conservative.
Right.
And I'm going like, so it's a bit of a, I'm sorry, sometimes I do cuss. It's a bit of a mind F.
I got you.
And so I'm going like, because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm ready to go like, okay, we're going to get them up. What we going to do? What we going to do? No, beautiful people, kind. And they've been kind with me. And what touches my soul to no end, that just puts a song in my heart, they've been kind to my mother, and that's my heart. So I'm going like, it opened my eyes. There's some people that are just racist. That's just out. They're just racist. But there's some people, they're just tired. They're tired. And I'm going like, okay, I can't cut somebody off without a reason,
I get you.
And so it's a juggling for me, because my worst fear is that I become that person that just hurts people just for shits and giggles. I can't be that. I can't be that. That's nasty.
Right.
And it grosses me out. So until that changes, that's how it's going to be.
I got you. Yeah, and again, I have seen, in the time that I was in Santa Barbara, I lived in Santa Barbara for 10 years, and I think maybe out of the 3 fights that I've had, physical fights, 2 of them were definitely like racially motivated. The one with the guy who threw the beer on him in the back patio at Wildcat, and I had to touch him up. And then, I got into it with a couple.
Hulk smash. Hulk smash. I remember that.
Minor moments, but you know. But then, you know, I got into with a racist couple of Whiskey Richards, you know, a guy and his girlfriend. And I had to handle both of them, but they were throwing the N-bomb left and right. And you remember the night that we went to what was the name of the Sportsman, and the girl came up to our table and just as casually said,
yes, I remember that. She done lost her entire mind saying those words and everything. I'm going like,
yeah.
Oh.
And I tell people, you know, again, I go out. So
we was about, pardon, I'm gonna get a little street right here, yo. We was about to fuck up that entire bar, boo boo. We was. Sure. We about to let them know. We're like, wait a minute. Now somebody bleeding today. We're gonna be both. We're gonna be some red and wet up in her.
And I always tell them, I'm a black man South. There's just certain things that you're not gonna say to me. You know what I'm saying? And so you know, I can show you better than I can tell you. And so you know, we had to go there. But you know, over the years, and I'm going to wrap this up. But over the years, you know, again, I feel like our friendship has, you know, grown so much. And again, you've been a big part of my life. And you know, again, I wanted to have this time with you. You know, I know, you know, life happens, and you know, we don't keep in touch as often as we used to. And you know, the Trinity, me, you, and Marcus. You know, shout out to Marcus. You know?
Thank you so much, Ty. Before you go, I want to say thank you so much for inspiring me, because I've noticed a marked difference in my tarot reading business, where I'm reading for people and whatnot, where you told me what to focus on to build my clientele and whatnot. And I listened to you. So I wanted to say thank you. And I'm so happy that you are in New York, bringing light to dark places over there, because I remember the one person when you were in Santa Barbara who didn't like his boundaries, were very set, didn't want to talk to people, leave me alone. Now you are actually taking on the role of a protector, a teacher, a guider, a coach, a life coach. And I think that transition is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you for pointing that out, because you're right. It's kind of funny that I would evolve and transition and find my purpose, find my life work in guise of a life coach. I still do my marketing work, you know, that still pays the bills. But at the same time, you know, the coaching is something that I'm very passionate about. And again, anything that I can share or impart or even learn to help me improve as a coach, because vice versa, you're the person who said to me, Ty, you should be making videos, you should go live, you should like go mainstream. And I can say, oh no, that's not what I do, you know, that's not me. And or no, you know, like people get away from me.
Yeah.
So you helped me to get on my right path and on my right track. And so I'm so thankful. And so again, Berto, thank you so much for your time. We may have to do a round two, because I have another idea for a show. One thing that I wanted to talk about, you know, when we talked about, you know, growing up different, and I have a passion for, you know, for young Black boys, especially, you know, maybe they're really smart. They're really like, you know, super intelligent. They're socially awkward. But again, you know, we have this thing in our community where we label anything that's different. Well, that's gay. And sometimes even a kid is not even gay. He's just different. But we don't give him the space. You see what I'm saying? And I kind of want to do another show around that same thing. And I may do a panel show, but you know, you're definitely going to be one of the people that I want on that panel. I just have to figure out the guest list in my head and who I think can contribute to the conversation and bring, you know, layers. And I want it to be like a mixed panel, you know, it could be, you know, whatever.
I would love that.
So I want to put that in your spirit right before we go.
Yes, I would love to participate in that. You get it together, and I'll make sure I'll be there with, I'll be there with bells on, boo.
Sounds good. Well, Alberto, once again, thank you so much for your time. It's so good seeing you. You look great. And, you know, again, keep on being.
Love you very much, Ty.
Places. And I love you. Say hi to Mommy and Harry and Courtney and everybody. My love to the family. We'll see you soon.
I sure will. Bye.
Right. Take care.